Yeah, I got you back again. Great. I'm going to do a one-sided. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it comes in handy. There's different things it can be used for. Well, basically, excuse me. Basically, I'm looking at tactics and ways to get things done. I'm looking at things that need to be done, things that should be done. I'm looking at anomaly statistics. I'm looking at the phoniness of our system. I'm looking at the understanding of the weaponization of government judicial forces and other things. Or weaponization. Okay. Let me say. Well, yeah, Trump has a lot of apparent knowledge, but that's scripted. He doesn't sit there and research stuff. He pays other people to do it. He's doing other things, I mean, he's about making money, kind of, sort of. There's a mystery about how that works. You bankrupt a casino here or there. You have vast amounts of money to do apartment building rentals. So the renters are paying for the real estate, and you do all these different deals, but you still end up going bankrupt, which is confusing to many people. How do you take these types of incredibly highly profitable businesses and run them into the ground? So there's someone, people say there's stuff, and then there's something up with that. But anyhow, the statistics. Hold on, wait a minute, I got a call. No, I'm good. I'm back. Okay, where was I? Yes. Statistics is the key. Statistics. Basically, people like Trump in politics. This is like, just figure all politics. But anybody can get at these things. You have data that's available. Everybody that calls and does an attorney interview, for the most part in our days, ends up with people interviewing them, and they end up becoming a statistic. So, you may have noticed that you hear certain people in politics that might do things like talk about weaponization and how the system's all weaponized and it's all corrupt and all this other stuff, and then talk about different things that have happened to people. But the thing is that doesn't mean that they're a champion of these people's causes. They're just, the idea is you want to get people to identify with the understanding. And you have professionals that sit there typing into computers to see where the anomalies are. And there's lots of them, because you have, a complexity of things happening in government. And you have all these different opinions about, there's all this government's been added and added and added. But then you'll have other people saying, no, they've dramatically reduced the number of, like, FBI agents or this or that, and IRS agents and all this other stuff. And you have all these other people say, well, things are more complicated, there's more paperwork that has to be done. that there's a lot more stuff that just has to be investigated. And it requires more professional people. So, I can tell you firsthand, there's a lot of these empty buildings that are surplus, that end up surplus, that are big, huge government buildings, where they used to have, federal employees and whatnot, FBI, different kind of stuff, agencies. But basically, you have different types of statistics. So let's say that you have people that are saying that they don't want more government, so they choke off government from having enough personnel. When they need more personnel to get certain things done, they choke them off. And then the jobs sometimes get more and more complicated, like there's more and more paperwork that somehow gets invented, more and more requirements. It gets more complicated, therefore you have these cycles that go back and forth. So then people are bogged down, and then somebody comes up with maybe some new way of doing a kind of efficiency, and then efficiency increases, workloads go up per person, that's an increased efficiency, and this can end up going back and forth and floating around. But the complexities of all this leave areas where you could cover stuff in a brushstroke, but then it doesn't sound right because you're not putting the evidence out on the table. And that a lot of people they're science-based. They want to see, well, what's the evidence? And you'll see, like, a lot of people are claiming that, well, Trump never puts out evidence, that he's always just doing all these things and saying these things, and then they do fact-checking, and they come back and you'll see different things where they'll say, well, he lied, this didn't happen to him. Or he claimed it happened to somebody that he knew, and then they couldn't verify it. So then they say that it's false or this or that. But the statistics come from someplace. So you can have a lot of different ways you can look at these realities. And if you have a partial reality that says that 80% of the justice system is basically in a form of collapse, because what it used to do prior to Trump versus Trump era, and then into the post-Trump era, and now we're going back in. We're going into the overtime Trump era stuff. You've got 20,000 people, my understanding, that are basically permanently assigned to dealing with the Trump madness. You got the J6 and all this other stuff, and it was more. At one time, they had people on loan from all kinds of different agencies and agencies all over the country and different law enforcement that was researching stuff. And I heard estimates 78 to 80,000 people at max time. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I can't verify 80,000. Are you ready to go verify whether there's 80,000 actual people? Just to verify. Let's just blow that money. But in reality, the consistency of the statistics does indicate 20,000. So the 20,000 would seem to be accurate. Then you hear all of this bitching about weaponization, which is not a new thing. People have been saying that the government is trying to keep everybody down since the late 60s, And I mean, I used to have a lot of different friends here and there that have either gravitated away or I think some of them died. And basically they would have that attitude of the government is keeping everybody down, and they're attacking and they're weaponizing. The government is weaponized against people. They're only interested in investigating crimes that citizens have done and not crimes that have been done by government employees or leaders. And you might notice that usually there's a balance to the number of cases of Republicans versus Democrats, although you have fluctuations sometimes. I mean, sometimes certain people do a whopper. It's like, oh, you did that. Oh, you were caught red-handed. There's a tape of that. Ooh. somebody filed a civil, and so, then you end up where you have an imbalance again. But the justice system doesn't want to seem like it's discriminating, so that means that the only way that you can actually make things look like it's an even playing field is if you're going to manipulate the statistics in a negative manner, which means you're going to reject some cases. That's how that works. There's anomaly statistics are something that people look at, and they'll say, how come more black people get arrested? How come more black people are involved in shootings? How come more black people are murdered? How come more black people are caught murdering people? So all these different statistics and categories of stuff where they have different stuff, and the you have oppression statistics and whatnot. I think the current oppression statistic is Hawaiians. It might be last time I read a thing one time. It was amazing. It's like there was more harassment on Hawaiians than anybody else. It was like really a weird report. Now, I didn't have enough time to really read all of it, but it seemed to be tracking. But anyhow, so you have... Yes, I know that this is a long-winded answer. I know this. Yeah, but you asked. So I'm going to tell you. So you get the answer. So basically, you have, you actually do have, I have firsthand, experience. There's a lot of blacklisting that goes on. There's a lot of stuff that's wrong with the government. And of course, there's lots of reasons why there's stuff wrong with the government. Because why? Well, it's full of people. It's full of human beings. And human beings have flaws. This happens, So you can't hire millions and millions of people and then not have people do something illegal, statistically, not, So basically, if I say that that in reality that the communication system of government has broke down, that they followed suit, and their phone systems do not follow any form of logical manning. It's a problem. This is a problem. And part of the problem for this is insurrection. You have people that end up catching people committing crime on the phone. People call in and say, hey, look, this is what happened. And you have FBI people that hang up the phone or say, oh, well, mail us a letter and we'll review it in 3 to 6 weeks and decide then whether we want to pursue it. And you have people that are like, but you don't understand. This is an active item that has to be pursued now. Like for, take some of my case stuff, for instance. Somebody robs an archive and it's like, I don't know how much has been immediately taken. I've got a raw idea. So you call them up and say, yeah, tens of millions of dollars in archive material is definitely missing. Pertains to national security, pertains to elections, pertains to court research, case research, all kinds of stuff. And they're like, we don't care. In a nutshell, we don't care. And it's like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. This is an immediate rollout. So, in other words, what these people just did is commit a major felony on the phone. You said national security is violated. The proof's right here. You need to roll out. Come out, take some photographs, do some fingerprints. Let's get this investigation underway. And by the way, several items obviously can be selected as evidence. Look at the damage to this, put it in the bag, put a tag on it, and you've got evidence. So you're going to end up with fingerprints, destruction, photographs of destruction, photographs of tires, photographs of footprints. You're going to have photographs of items that are damaged. You're going to have samples of items that are damaged. So, and again, national security has been violated, right? That's a mandate. You have to roll on this. I mean, this is an archive. You have to roll on it. I mean, I'm all upset about this. And we're talking, and I track back and look at stuff later on. It's tens of millions of dollars that quickly come up and say, no, that's missing. No, it's tens of millions, and then we keep going. It's like, oh no, it's hundreds of millions of dollars in damage, because it's like, oh no, they destroyed this case research, and they destroyed this certain evidence, and some of it can be recaptured, some of it maybe not. So you got damage occurring. Designs, research. The just click keeps going up and up and up. Now compare that to, apparently there's a bank robbery. Somebody goes into a bank, they have some kind of minimal disguise on. They put a piece of paper down with writing on the counter that says fill up the bag. And these people are like, oh, they have a gun. But nobody sees a gun. But they fill up the bag. And I believe the most successful bank robber types, they do one bag, one teller, and they split. They're gone. They get the money, and whoop, they're out of there. And, that's the way a lot of these used to work. Some of them now, you couldn't do that. They're behind 2 inches of Lexan. There's no way that you could rob a teller at some of these certain banks now. Just couldn't happen. But this is not to say that there aren't banks that are still, capable where people can rob them. So I mean, they can grab a bank person walk, in a bank, and they can hold a gun to the side of their head right in front of a teller and put a bag in and say, fill the bag up or I blow their brains out. And these people are going to fill the bag up. But still, essentially, here's what happens. The call comes in. Yes, there was bank got robbed. They show up. There's no witnesses that saw a gun. They have tape of the individual. They can see you put a piece of paper down on the counter. The teller says, yeah, it said fill the bag up. And then they quickly left, and that's it. It's over with. So by the time the FBI gets the word on it, local law enforcement is already rolling. But FBI is going to show up anyhow. It's a bank robbery. So you end up maybe having like upwards of 28 locals and like 4 to 7 FBI agents, that are basically going to verify things. They're just going to do the deal that way. And so it's immediately rolled on. Now, if you add up the money and you say, wow, it's $300 per man hour, that's it's for, so you sit there and go, the 28 guys were there for, some were less, some were more, some were there for an hour. And then the second hour, there was only like 6 or 7. But then the FBI is there for an hour. So you add all this up and it's like this vast sum of money. It's like, wow, they're spending $25,000, $30,000 investigating a bank robbery where the theft was only like $20,000, $30,000. So they're immediately spending as much money or more than what was just stolen. Keep this in mind. But compared to my situations, national security is violated. Vast sums of money in damage have been done, and they don't want to roll on it. And they ask questions, and all of a sudden they're convinced. Oh no! Oh, that sounds like. Oh, how dare you try to gather evidence against our man Trump? Click, hang up the phone, and it's like, well, what's up with this? What is up with this policy of people putting strange politics, procedurals in the way, in other words, if there is a problem, you have to address it properly. In other words, like with me, so here you have a huge breakdown. Dereliction of duty. You read the Constitution articles. It's mandatory. Mandatory to protect archives. It's mandatory to protect national security. It's mandatory to protect candidates. So immediately when you have the FBI or Justice Department not roll out to these situations where they can immediately take photographs, get samples, open up Ziploc bags, put samples in, tie it up, put a tag on it, get the photographs, get fingerprints. It's all right there, and they don't want to roll on it. So you have a situation where these people are committing major constitutional violations. Major. There's no other. I defy anyone. Read the Constitution. Read the articles. After what you just heard me say. Yeah. That's a pretty decent looking bike, actually. So the comparison here is that there's lots of other ways to look at this stuff. So when you investigate this kind of stuff, it goes on and on. In other words, if you have a bunch of Democrats attack a campaign location, you don't want them sending a bunch of Democrats. You want Republicans to come out. And then, of course, vice versa. If you have a bunch of Republicans attacking a Democratic headquarters, you want Democrats to come out. So now you have people say, oh, well, that would be biased. No, wrong. Oh, yeah, it's biased. You're being biased. No, wrong. That's the reverse. It's the reverse, You don't call up the wolf. You don't call up the Wolf's Lodge and say, hey, we had some wolves come out here and do the deal. We need you guys to come down here and take a report. You don't do that. There's no logic in that. The logic is statistically that these people will screw up, that statistically they will give a poor performance. Now, granted, it's not an absolute. I mean, you've got a lot of people out there. You've got there's a bunch of examples out there. You got Robert Mueller, Republican, straight ethics. You got a bunch of different FBI guys in the news, arresting maybe Congress people, sometimes senators. And the reality is that it's basically these people committed crimes, and you do have agents that they're pure ethics. So you do have Democrats that will arrest Democrats, So you have a lot of these, different things where it's actually works the way it's supposed to work, but the reality is it's not working the way it's supposed to work. And a lot of people in government are not being upfront about that. So you end up with all these statistics. So back to statistics. So when you have the Justice Department screw up and people are like, I don't believe they just did that. It's mandatory for them to roll. They just got into dereliction of duty. They're facing possible treason charges, possible death penalty. We're in an insurrection. And, so now you have, no matter what the crime is, you have people that end up calling attorneys. I want an opinion on this. So what usually happens is the way things work now is for some reason you can't get directly through to the right kind of attorneys. Advertising's a huge bait and switch. People are paying money. You have internet marketing and algorithms get in the way so that all of a sudden people are encouraged, or in some cases forced, to go to a sponsored connection because that's all that's there. It's weird. So now you're having people that what they're actually doing is they're a case mill, they're just a mill to, it's like a boiler room, if do you know what a boiler? Okay, good. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, so basically, all these people are getting interviewed, and they'll tell what their cases are about. They'll tell what they've witnessed. They'll tell the way that government employees acted. So now you have all of these raw statistics that you can access and get a hold of. If you have money and you say, we want to study criminal patterns of all natures because we want to understand this because we're attorneys, this information's available. So this is how you end up with people getting a hold of, using money to get a hold of this data and figure out even the local demographics, but definitely statewide and national demographics of what's happening. So if you know what those statistics are, when you realize that there are areas where 8 out of 10 people that are entitled to immediate emergency federal agent assistance, justice assistant, as an immediate rollout, and they don't get it, then this is, attorneys are looking at this. They're going, these people's civil rights are being violated. The Constitution's being violated. These statistics keep growing and growing and growing. So somebody could sit there, like with now you could use language models that have a bunch of agents in them and say, I need you to make a list of these statistics. I mean, that's what some of these things do. Before it was done certain ways, there were certain other ways, and it was you typed in certain things and it would search certain labeling. But of course, certain other data, personalized information, is basically kept out. So this is how you can have politicians run all around the country and constantly whine about how corrupt the government is, because they have endless material that's actually real. So if you look at the deeper look, in other words, and say, gee, you don't need to know the exact person's identity, but that might help. But if you know what's going on regionally, regional demographics, then you can talk about the anomaly factors where people are getting screwed around. And I've seen Trump do it a lot. He does it a lot. So he does these generalizations and then says, well, come on, yeah, we all know it's true. You all know it's true, right? I mean, you got a friend, somebody, ask around. Tell a friend. You've seen that happen, tell a friend about it. So now all these people are exchanging information. Yeah, I know somebody, this happened. And then now some people complain that there's also a bunch of information being falsely generated. But there's actually a whole bunch of truth to the fact that the justice system is broken. Now, why it's broken, you have Democrats that are going to point fingers and say, it's the Republicans who broke the system. And you're going to have Republicans look over and point at Democrats and say, no, it's the Democrats that are breaking the system. It's everything that they've done. So you have this politics back and forth, and now you have mass anomaly statistics repeatedly equating out to people personally identifying to things that have been said. So you have all these people that end up finding somebody that they know of where some of these things have happened to them. Or maybe they've happened to themselves and they get on Twitter and they share it. So there's actually this huge percentage of truth to the sheer fact that long-term belief is from the 60s that the government people are trying to keep you down and that they've weaponized the system against you has been believed, again, since the late 60s. But we also have the statistical evidence of raw statistics that show that that's exactly what's happening. So this is how you have people, again, gaining ground. They're around, well, it's true. That's true. Ask around. But the thing is it's like, like with me, when I stand up and people go, oh, you're an election denier. I'm like, what? Look here, did you see the evidence? Okay, let's go slow. What is this? And what is this? And what is it? Right. Okay. And that's what? It's evidence? Yeah. Yes, it's evidence. Okay. Yes. And these are the people involved, and this is what they did. Or these are the people so far we've figured out who are involved. These people over here, Julie Sue wouldn't follow orders of Congress, blacklisted. You have other people in government that ordered incomes shut down. So this is a statewide thing. So then you have other people who don't want to cooperate on supportive evidence. The Secretary of State's office, they have evidence in hand that's needed to verify. And by the way, as a candidate who's come under attack, I want them to verify this. I also need their direct assistance to front me the money needed to get on the ballot, because I have a 100% blocking of my usable income by the state itself and by state employees. And then they're in dereliction of duty. They refuse to help. Well, the Constitution says that these people are aiding and abetting, first, definitely in dereliction, but beyond that, they're involved in election rigging. They're involved in acts of war against the candidate. It's right in the Constitution. It's right in the articles. You don't go the muster. Musters. If musters go to the camp and do damage or destroy a business and the income, whatever, that is an act of war. These are acts of war. With me, it's very vivid. It's very vivid. Here's a bunch of samples of violence. Look at all this extreme violence. Undeniable. It's been on the web for, last couple of years. Undeniable. And then when I put these things back out, here it is, someone's listening to this, and here it is, it's right here. There's evidence all along the way. It's undeniable. I got people shooting at me and everything. So you have these people that are saying, you're election denier. And I'm saying, well, no, that's not the case. I have lots of evidence of what these people have done, what they've involved themselves in, their derelictions of duty or whatever their participation is, blacklisting or whatever. And it's definitive. It's definitive evidence. So, it says, but you're still election. No, I'm not an election desire. Let me help explain this to you. I want my votes. You understand? I'm not supporting anybody else on this deal. I want my votes. Why? I'm a candidate. I want my votes. You can't shut down a candidate's income. You can't shut all income areas down. Stay-at-home orders, lockdown orders, and then end up causing so many problems that it's causing an entire fleet of mobile broadcast RB units to get destroyed, because they're archive units. That's a separate series of felonies, by the way. So it's you got a candidate series of felonies. They're committing acts of war. All these different things lay out multiple levels. These people are screwed, and the justice system is only threatening. They refuse to act. They don't even need. The law says that my presence isn't even necessary. I have put ample evidence out publicly and laid out things of, well, this, check this out. They don't need, attorneys have told me this repeatedly, your presence is not required. Part of protecting you, a candidate, from harassment is when you have strong definitive evidence. These people are supposed to go to work, not be in dereliction of duty. There's this huge evidence that's going out again and again and again. So you get to this point where you end up having all these witnesses that have seen this evidence, The media's got copies of the evidence. What is the media doing? Is the media investigating acts of war against the candidate? Is the media understanding there's been attempts against my life? It's a RICO situation. We have decentralized attackers. And these people in the state are people that have committed acts of war and blacklisting and have absconded with money that Congress ordered pay, but these people are also responsible for shutting down the income of a business. This is how you end up having things get worse and worse and worse to the point where you're coming under violent attack. You don't know whether these violent attackers are Democrats or Republicans. You start to investigate it. At first, it seemed like some of these people, there was some evidence, were Republicans. But now, at this point, because you have all these Democrats over here that are busted 9 ways from Tuesday. I mean, look at Julie Sue, busted, connected to $31 billion in fraud. $31 billion, and at the same time, she's shutting down communication and blacklisting people that are candidates. She's refusing to adhere to the continuity of communications of government. She's violating COG, continuity of government. She's violating continuity of elections, COE. And we have an insurrection. It's mandatory for communication lines to be open and available for candidates that need crucial services. We have an insurrection. Double down with, we have a pandemic. They're doing things that are not allowed. They're taking actions that are defined by the Constitution and Articles as dereliction of duty, aiding and abetting other parties. You have the AG's office refusing to prosecute people. So, hey, look, these people did this, and this. You have to arrest these people. The Secretary of State, California, it's supposed to be their job to protect the process of elections, but they don't. What's wrong with these people? These are major. This is not a game. These are major violations. This is not, we're so sorry, sir, here's a small check. This is, hi, how are you doing? You're under arrest for aiding and abetting an attack on an archive. By the way, it's right here in the Constitution. Here, you read it, see it, right here, right here. Yeah, and it has mandatory death penalty charges. And they'll say stupid stuff. Like, well, there's no death penalty in California. You can't do that. And you have to explain to them, well, number one, what you're probably quoting is a finding by a judge that says that California can no longer do the death penalty. That's the one. What does it actually say? And it's like, let me tell you what it says. I've seen a little bit of it. I can recall some of it, Lucy. It says that the management of California effectively is so inconsistent and unpredictable that it causes extended waits of time, which are considered cruel and unusual punishment. And therefore, on that basis, California can't be trusted to manage executions. Therefore, they're canceling California's right to manage executions. So, see, here's the thing. This is what they're failing to understand. When it's not the jurisdiction solely of California, that ruling doesn't apply. Like if I go in and say, hi, how are you doing? This is my constitutional powers right here, presidential candidate panel. I can do seizure, arrests. Here, look it up yourself. You're supposed to be attorneys and smart people. Can never be removed from the books. There's good stuff here. And, I can do all kinds of neat stuff. Even says you can do torture. No, you can't do torture. The word torture is discussed as to among the items